Hey folks, today I want to talk about how do you actually create a champion team, a team that actually performs at a champion level and wins almost every single time. Now, no team wins every single time, but you want a team to win more often than not, and that is essentially where they're performing at the champion level. And what better time to talk about that than the Canadian election results here today? Regardless of whatever party that you're part of, I want to break it down to how do you actually create a team that wins and consistently wins. That is a champion team. And so a champion team, there's 6 different layers of performance. There's burnout, which is at the very bottom. There is low performance, which is essentially exactly what it means. It's underperforming team. There's acceptable performance, so they're at the minimal standards, you can say, and that's where the majority of teams are at that acceptable level. Then there's what people call the high-performing teams, which is just above acceptable. When the vast majority of people talk about high-performing, they're talking about a team that's actually doing better than acceptable. For me, I have even greater, higher standards, which is the 5th level, which is peak-performing team. So team that actually performs significantly better than high-performing. The challenge with peak-performing teams is that they don't always consistently perform, and that is the next level, which is champion performance, a team that consistently performs at their highest potential, at their best. Okay, so that is a champion team. So how do you actually create a champion team? And I thought it would be appropriate to talk about this because there's a lot of happy people out there when it comes to politics or Canadian politics today, and then there's a lot of angry and sad people out there. But something to pay attention for us to go forward as a nation is that we need to have what we call team cohesion. If you take a look at all of the champion performing teams, they have team cohesion, which is basically the tendency for the team to actually stick together and work towards a common goal. And that's what we need to do here in Canada. And I'm sorry for those of you listening out there in the US, that's not what's happening in the US. And essentially that's what's going to challenge the US going forward, is the infighting. And if we can get our act together here in Canada and actually unite and create this cohesion, not only as a society, but also as parties. So I don't like to talk about politics. I like to talk about leadership, okay? Because a big part of politics is leadership. And for leadership to be effective, regardless of whether it's political leadership, regardless of whether it's business leadership, or even family or relational leadership, leadership in a family unit, or leadership in a partnership or in a marriage, whatever that might be, requires there to be team cohesion. But there's 2 different types of team cohesion. They're kind of subtypes within team cohesion. And this is where we really need to figure that out in terms of which of these 2 subtypes does our team have and which one are they falling short in. And the first subtype is what we call social cohesion. And that is essentially the interpersonal bonds and emotional connections between members. Okay, so that's the relationship side. That's the social cohesion where people believe that others have their best interest at heart, where they have a level of trust and open communication. If you ever taken a look at any of Patrick Lencioni's work where he talks about the 5 dysfunctions of the team, the basic foundation is trust. If you don't have trust, you don't have social cohesion. That's why he starts his model that way. But there's a number of other elements that he doesn't talk about that are very important as well, right? And it's also meeting each other's emotional needs. Now, that doesn't mean that you're out there saying, hey, buddy, or hey, colleague, what are your emotional needs? Let me meet them. It just means that for them to be interacting in that social unit, so if we're talking about the social unit of your executive team, they need to have their emotional needs met. For example, if one of their emotional needs is excitement or passion, and that social structure, so interacting with other executives on your team, if that person isn't getting that emotional need met, they're going to be unsatisfied. And if you take a look at whether it's athletes or the top performing individuals, they don't always leave because of the mechanics. Many of them leave because they're not getting their emotional needs met in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so it's not just pay. There's a big element of emotional needs, which falls within the social cohesion part. So this is a typical approach when people are talking about team building, where they take their teams off site, they do team building exercises in the hope that it creates social cohesion. Okay, so that's where I want you to relate and take a look and say, is my team, do they have those interpersonal bonds? Do they have that trust, that open communication, and emotional connections, right? That's what you're looking for. If that's not there, That's why it's very important. That's why I'm bringing this topic up here today, which I do believe if I take a look and analyze the political leadership landscape, one person was promoting social cohesion and the other person was not. And the other person who did not promote that is the one who lost. Okay. Social cohesion is the foundational premise of a team working together. And this is a difference between a team, which is a group of people working in unison towards something or attaining a goal, versus a group. A group is just a bunch of people working. Okay? They're working, they might be working towards something, but they're not in unison. And that is the difference. That's what social cohesion is. You want your team to be in unison. We also talk about synchronization or coherence. They're actually compounding on each other and complementing each other. They're not just going on their mosey own ways and working. They might be working towards the same goal, but they're not compounding each other. That is social cohesion. Now, task cohesion, there's an element of compounding in task cohesion as well. But task cohesion is more of the practical side. It's a commitment to actually achieving the goals and objectives from a practical perspective. That could be, hey, look, we want to hit X sales this year. Okay, so that is the objective. And then they're aligned in terms of how to achieve the objectives. So they're aligned not only with the goals in itself, but your team members are aligned with a process to achieve them. Okay, so that is task cohesion. The important thing to remember here is that if your team has both of these social cohesion and task cohesion, you have comprehensive team cohesion as a whole. If you're missing one of these elements, you're not going to have that champion performing team. Now, going back into task cohesion, they have a shared commitment to the actual tasks themselves and the dedication to actually perform at their highest level, which functionally means that they're not only, going full and accountable in terms of what they are responsible for. They are actually saying we are dedicated to getting that end result, and we are dedicated to performing at our optimal level. That's where the task cohesion really comes into effect. Okay. And this is where motivation and drive are so critical, because you have to be motivated not only for your team's, you can say, objectives and goals, but you also have to be motivated for your own individual objectives and goals as well. So there's a shared commitment to the goals, but this is why when we work with teams, we also take a look and we say, hey, do you know what the goals are of your colleagues? Do you know what each of their not only professional goals are, but do you also know what their personal goals are? Because if you don't know what your colleagues' goals are, how are you going to help them achieve those goals? That, and it could be professional goals, again, or personal goals. If you help your colleague achieve their professional goals, they're going to more likely be able to work harder in alignment with you to achieve your personal goals or your professional goals. Now, if you help them achieve their personal goals, they're going to work that much harder. So this is the whole task cohesion part. It's the alignment of goals and the alignment of how do you actually achieve the goals, not only as a team, right, but also as individuals as well. So these are the two components. I'm just going to bring it back here. And again, I'm going to bring it back to the political landscape. Regardless of who won, we know one party won. But the key to the success of this party is going to be whether they have cohesion within the nation of Canada. And that cohesion is going to require not only social cohesion, how our communities bond together and unite together and have that emotional connection together. Okay, so that's the social side, but also the task cohesion, which is how well do we actually get things done? How well are we aligned in terms of the end outcome and objectives, whether that's the economic growth, whether that's social, right? Whatever that might be, whatever the objectives are, we have to be aligned with that. That's the task side. The same goes for your team at work and your team at home, or any type of critical relationship that you have with an individual. You want to make that into a team environment because you want that 1 + 1 = 5, not 1 + 1 = 2. And in many cases, in many teams, where you have 1 + 1 equals actually -5. This happens quite a bit because there's a lack of that cohesion and lack of alignment. So I hope this brings you value today, where you actually take a look at your team, you take a look at your team at work, you take a look at your team at home, and you can apply these two principles of task cohesion, but also social cohesion as well. If you got both of them down packed in your team, you're going to watch their level of performance skyrocket, their potential is going to skyrocket, as well as their level of satisfaction and happiness. And this goes for you as a leader as well, because when your team reaches that level, you're going to have less headaches and you're going to have a greater level of satisfaction as well.